The Palestinians on Saturday expressed outrage and disappointment over the UN Security Council's failure to issue a resolution condemning Israel for the deaths and injuries during Friday's mass protests along the border between the Gaza Strip and Israel. The Palestinian Authority blamed the US and Britain for obstructing the Palestinian and Arab effort to persuade the Security Council to issue a resolution blasting Israel for the 16 Palestinian fatalities. Yousef al-Mahmoud, spokesperson for the PA government in Ramallah, said that Washington's and London's opposition to a resolution condemning Israel turns them into accomplices in the horrific massacre committed by the Israeli occupation army against our defenseless people. Get the Times of Israel's daily edition by email and never miss our top stories. Free sign up. Mahmoud accused the US and Britain of displaying bias in favor of oppression and suppression. He claimed that the Friday protests were peaceful marches and demonstrations to mark the 42nd anniversary of Land Day. The Israeli government alone, he charged, was directly responsible for this dreadful massacre, which resulted in 16 martyrs and hundreds of wounded. Fatalities from the March 30 violence on the Israel-Gaza border identified by the IDF as members of terror groups. Israel Defense Forces, the Israeli military on Saturday night identified 10 of the 16 people reported killed during violent protests along the Gaza security fence as members of Palestinian terrorist groups, and published a list of their names and positions in the organizations. The Security Council held a closed meeting on Friday night to discuss the clashes along the Gaza-Israel border, despite a request from the US and Israel to postpone deliberations for Saturday due to Passover holiday Eve. Palestinian protesters prayed during a demonstration against Israel along the Gaza Strip border east of Khan Yunis, Friday, March 30, 2018. AP photo. Adel Hanna. PA President Mahmoud Abbas announced on Friday that he had instructed his envoy to the UN, Riyad Mansour, to ask the Security Council to provide international protection for the Palestinians. On Saturday, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres called for those concerned to refrain from any act that could lead to further casualties. He also called for an independent and transparent investigation into the deaths and injuries during Friday's clashes. Nabil Abu Rudinate, spokesman for PA President Mahmoud Abbas, accused the U.S. administration of providing a cover for Israel to continue its aggression against the Palestinian people. The U.S. stance at the UN Security Council, he added, encourages Israel to defy UN resolutions aimed at ending its occupation. Palestinian children wave a Palestinian flag as they burn a crossed-out poster depicting U.S. President Donald Trump during a protest near Khan Yunis in the southern Gaza Strip March 30, 2018. AFP photo, said Khatib, the Hamas terror group, for its part, expressed regret over the Security Council's failure to issue a resolution condemning Israel. The group condemned the U.S. for thwarting the move at the Security Council and accused Washington of being fully biased in favor of Israel and encouraging Israel to commit more violence and terrorism against Palestinian civilians. Gaza's Hamas terrorist rulers released these images of members of its military wing who it acknowledged were among 16 Gazans it said were killed by Israeli fire during clashes along the security fence on Friday, March 30, 2018. Earlier Saturday, Hamas publicly acknowledged that 5 members of its military wing, the Azad Din al-Qassam brigades, were among the fatalities. On Friday, some 30,000 Palestinians took part in demonstrations along the Gaza border, during which rioters threw rocks and firebombs at Israeli troops on the other side of the fence, burned tires and scrap wood, sought to breach and damage the security fence, and in one case opened fire at Israeli soldiers. The army said that its sharpshooters targeted only those taking explicit violent action against Israeli troops or trying to break through or damage the security fence. Video footage showed that in one case a rioter, whom the army included in its list of Hamas members, appeared to be shot while running away from the border. The army in response accused Hamas of editing and/or fabricating its videos. The Palestinians' march to Gaza's border with Israel on Friday was the largest such demonstration in recent memory, calling for Palestinians to be allowed to return to land that their ancestors fled from in the 1948 War of Independence. It was dubbed the March of Return. The army has remained on high alert even as the violence appeared to abate Friday evening, amid fears of persisting attacks, including infiltration attempts and rocket fire. Protest organizers have said mass marches would continue until May 15, the 70th anniversary of the establishment of the State of Israel. Palestinians mark that date as their Nakba, or catastrophe, when hundreds of thousands left or were forced to leave during the 1948 War of Independence. The vast majority of Gaza's 2 million people are their descendants. At previous peace talks, the Palestinians have always demanded, along with sovereignty in the West Bank, Gaza, East Jerusalem, and the Old City, a right of return to Israel for Palestinian refugees who left or were forced out of Israel when it was established. The Palestinians demand this right not only for those of the hundreds of thousands of refugees who are still alive, a figure estimated in the low tens of thousands, but also for their descendants, who number in the millions. No Israeli government would ever be likely to accept this demand, since it would spell the end of Israel as a Jewish-majority state. Israel's position is that Palestinian refugees and their descendants would become citizens of a Palestinian state at the culmination of the peace process, just as Jews who fled or were forced out of Middle Eastern countries by hostile governments became citizens of Judah R. Gross, Times of Israel staff contributed to this report.